All right, firstly, welcome to the Sandown Caravan Show. Thank you all for coming along and being part of this presentation. My name's Leon, and I am the Director of Safe to Tow. So, Safe to Tow provides a mobile weighing and suspension service Victoria-wide. We come out to you, make sure that your setup is compliant and safe to tow. So, during our lap of Australia in 2021, my wife and I were chatting to a lot of travelling families and couples, and what we realised was, at a campfire, we were chatting about weights, etc., and a lot of the time, people are confused about weights, what everything means, can this vehicle tow that caravan, etc. So, today, I just want to touch on a brief example of a difference between different towing vehicles and the effect that different vans have on those vehicles. So, that being said, we'll get started. Okay, so today's session is called Tow with Confidence, the essential guidance for choosing the correct caravan and towing vehicle. I'll be sharing my experience and providing advice around choosing the right caravan and right towing vehicle for you and for your needs. So the session overview is we'll be considering when choosing the right tow vehicle and caravan, understanding axle loads, payloads, vehicle specifications, and all of the other acronyms, common mistakes that we see when selecting caravans and tow vehicles, and then a scenario of the difference between a 7-seater wagon versus a dual cab ute, and what happens when you hitch a van to it. There will be a time at the end for questions and answers, so feel free to... Sorry guys, tech issue. All good. Feel free to ask the questions at that time, or if you don't really want to voice it out loud, come and see us at site 262 and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. Okay, so choosing the right tow vehicle. Know your legal towing capacities, regardless of what car you have. That is the number one thing. So GVM, GCM, tow ball mass, axle loads, brake towing capacity. I'm not going to dive into each individual spec and what it means. Now, that's a bit of homework for you guys to do, okay, because we're not going to have time today. However, we do have on our website a free towing guide that you can download that pretty much summarizes and covers all of the acronyms and what they mean and how they affect the car or the caravan. So, what we see on a day-to-day basis is a common mistake. It's not just in person, also online. I'm sure you guys have witnessed it. Or even when you're going to buy a new caravan, everyone focuses only on brake towing capacity. So, you might hear or you might get asked the question, what car do you have? Oh, that's fine. It's 3.5 ton. You can tow that van, no worries. That couldn't be further from the truth. So we're going to uncover all of that today, so you leave here with a better understanding of what it all means and how it all affects. Okay, so what is brake towing capacity? The definition of brake towing capacity is the loaded weight of the trailer that you can legally tow. Now, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the misleading nature of 3.5 brake towing capacity and what you need to know and the impact it has on other vehicle specs. Most modern day vehicles these days have a brake towing capacity of 3.5 ton, but that doesn't mean that you can hitch up a 3.5 ton caravan and legally tow it. You must be mindful of all the other specifications like I mentioned, the GCM, the axle loads, all of that stuff is really important. Things that you need to consider when selecting a car or a caravan is make a list. Ask yourself, how many passengers are you going to be traveling with? Are you going to be traveling with pets? What are their weights? What is the approximate caravan tow ball weight? It's one thing going off a tow ball weight at tear, but what you'll quickly find out is when you load the caravan up, that tow ball weight is going to go up significantly. So just solely relying on the plate and saying, okay, well the tow ball weight at tear is 200 kilos, so that's what you're allowing, that's not the way to go about it. You need to weigh the tow ball weight with the caravan loaded, especially if you're putting bike racks, a bike rack on the front and putting bikes, that will heavily impact the tow ball weight. Also, asking yourself, is the car going to be driven as an everyday car, or is it only going to be strictly used for weekends and for towing? Because that being said, if you do need to get a GVM upgrade on the vehicle, when you do so, you change the comfort and the ride of the car. So if it is your everyday vehicle and you want to maintain that comfortable ride, I suggest you do your research and select the vehicle carefully, because then that will determine whether or not you are going to need to upgrade the suspension, which is in turn going to affect the ride of the vehicle. All right. So here we go. These are the two vehicles that I'm using as an example today. So choosing the right tow vehicle and avoiding buyer's regret. So we've got the Everest wagon, 7-seater, and we've got the dual cab Wild Track. Okay, both are V6. Both are beautiful cars. Both have pros and cons. We'll just touch on a couple of them, the most important ones. So with the wagon, you've got the 7-seat option. You've got the ability to put stuff in the back, keep it dry, etc. Now, with the dual cab ute, you've got the tub. You can put all of your stuff in the back. You can stay nice, safe, and secure. You can put your bikes on the back like you can see in this photo. Now, what we're going to talk about is how different these cars are in terms of capacity. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so example A. This is the Ford Everest Sport, the V6. So you can see on the slide, you've got the GVM is 3150, so that's the maximum the car can weigh, including passengers, tow ball weight, etc. Then you've got your GCM, which is 6250, a curb weight of 2457. Now, if you subtract the curb weight from the GVM, you get your payload. So that's how much weight you can actually put in the car. So in this case, it's 693 kilos, and the brake towing capacity is 3.5 tonne. Now, what isn't spoken about a hell of a lot are axle loads, and they are as important as every other acronym. So on the Everest, we've got the front axle weight rating of 1470. I'll just touch on what axle loadings are, for those of you who don't know, sorry, before I go into detail. Axle loads are, so you've got your two front wheels, which are your front axle, and then you've got your two rear wheels, which are your rear axle. Now, each axle has a load limit. Okay, and that's based on the manufacturer's spec. So in this case, it's 1470 on the front and it's 1770 on the rear. So this is example B, the Ford Ranger Wild Track. So you can see the GVM is 3350, which is a little bit more than the Everest. The GCM is also more. The curb weight, the brake towing capacity, I want everyone to look at that. It's exactly the same as the Everest, okay? Then you've got the front and rear axle load ratings. Now, with the Ranger, you've got 966 kilograms of payload compared to 693, which is a big difference when you come weigh day to being overweight or being compliant. So, what I've based these next slides on is in this situation. So, generally, what we see, a family of 4, these figures will fluctuate depending on how you pack, the weight of your passengers, etc. So family of 4, we've allowed 200 kilos. Fuel in the car, 80 kilos. Tow ball mass of 250, which is actually pretty conservative. If you're towing a van that's 3.5 tonne loaded, you'd want the tow ball weight to be up a bit more than that. We've allowed for a steel bull bar, 100 kilos, and a bit of camping gear and some tools in the back of the car, so 100 kilos. So altogether, that's 730 kilos. Now, if you factor in those weights based on each vehicle, you can see the difference between both. So again, these are just basic figures, okay? They will fluctuate depending on where that weight is. If you don't have a bull bar, if you've got a winch, the weights will change, but we'll just go with this for now. So 236 kilograms remaining in the Ranger compared to 37 kilograms being over in the Everest. Is anyone surprised? No? So, also, the rear axle load rating on the Everest is also going to be over with hardly nothing in the car. But keep in mind, they both say that they're 3.5 tonne towing capacity. So you can see how important it is to not just go off what the manufacturer says of the vehicle to say that, okay, that car can tow 3.5 tonne. because that's not the case. There are other areas that you need to consider, okay? Now, this applies with any vehicle. So the notorious 200 series, the Y62 Patrol, each vehicle has its pros, has its cons. Every manufacturer has different capacities, but it's so important to study the car, know its limits, know its pros, know its cons, and then determine what caravan you purchase based on what vehicle you like. Now, in the instance that the car is overweight for the Everest, okay, so how do we fix it? So we go to the next slide. A GVM upgrade, right? I'm sure you've all heard of a GVM, GCM upgrade. The definition, or not the definition, so what a GVM upgrade is, it involves the professional fitment of an aftermarket suspension kit which has been designed, tested and approved in Australia to increase the factory GVM, allowing you to carry more weight. Now, there are two types of GVM approval that you can have done. You can have a state approval, which is done post-rego, or you can have a federal approval, which is done pre-rego. So what that means is if you're buying a brand new car and you want to have the GVM upgrade done, you can get it done before the car's registered and it's recognised federally. So if you ever wanted to sell the car in the future, there's no need to get it engineered if you're transferring it to another state. Okay. Now, so many people assume their weights when they're buying a new car. They might rush into the purchase. They might decide, okay, well, this is the van we're getting. We'll just estimate what we're going to weigh. We'll go and get a GVM upgrade done. Now, there's pros and cons to having your GVM upgrade done pre and post rego. However, what we see on a weekly basis is that for those of you who don't know how much a GVM upgrade costs, you're looking at anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000 upwards, okay, which is a lot of money. Now, we see at least one vehicle a week that has a GVM upgrade, but they haven't allowed for enough. So come weigh day, we have to break the bad news to them and say they've spent $5,000, but they've actually gone for the wrong upgrade. So any advice that I can give you is talk to a weighing company first. Ask questions. They've got a database of figures based on different situations. They can point you in the right direction. Give us a call. Give anyone else a call in the weighing industry. I can't stress this enough. Talk about the weights with someone. Get it weighed before you modify the car or the caravan. Now, if you want to put a bull bar on, if you want to put a long range tank on, it can be done anytime. Now, if you weigh it first with the caravan fully loaded, car fully loaded, full of fuel, passengers, etc., you know where you stand. You can then take that data, you can go to a GVM installer and say, this is what my car weighs, this is what my van weighs, this is how much payload I need, what can you give me? That's the best way to go about it to avoid buyer's regret. Okay, so now that we've spoken about the cars, now it's time to go shopping and choose a caravan and build the right caravan. So again, it's very important to understand the acronyms, the TARE, the ATM, the GTM, the tow ball mass, the payload, the axle group load. All that information, again, is on our website and available to you for you to download. Okay, so whether you're buying a brand new caravan or a second-hand caravan, I would highly recommend checking the compliance plates straight away. Number one thing. Sometimes we rock up to an appointment and people don't even know where their compliance plates are. It's very important to check your compliance plate figures and make sure they are correct and accurate. Sometimes tear weight figures can be incorrect, and that's due to the fact that when you're buying a new van, it can be overwhelming. You start accessorizing the van. You'll put a bike rack on, you'll put another water tank on. You'll put more solar, more batteries, etc. Now, if you are selecting a caravan based on a brochure figure, right, and then you go to pick your caravan up, don't be surprised if that caravan tear weight is 150 kilos heavier than what it initially was. Now, if you're basing your decision on that caravan based on the brochure's weight, you'll be shocked because you've gone out and bought a car, because 150 kilos might not seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's the difference between being over or compliant. Okay, things to consider: layout, size, upgrades, use, and lifestyle. Now, if you don't plan on going off-grid, there is no point having all the batteries, all the solar, airbags, etc. Again, come weigh day, you'll find out that if you want to take bikes and that's really important to you, you won't be able to. So pick your van based on your lifestyle and what you are going to be using it for. There is no need to buy something that you don't need. Then, once you've got that down, you can, if you're buying a new car, you can match it to your tow vehicle. If you've already got a tow vehicle, then give us a call and we can work that with you to see whether or not it's going to work. Okay, so this is some tips for everyone. Weigh first, then modify. Check vehicle and caravan travel heights. What I mean by that, and this is more related to a dual axle caravan, travel heights on a car and caravan are very important. Again, especially on a dual axle caravan. The whole point of a dual axle caravan is to distribute the weight evenly across all four wheels. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen someone cruising down the freeway, front of the car facing to the sky, back of the caravan nearly dragging along the floor, okay? That is very, very unsafe. If we pop that on the scales at that height, what you'll find is that the front axle of the caravan is going to be significantly heavier than the rear, okay? So you are overloading your front axle, which is going to lead to excessive tyre wear. You run the risk of breaking an axle because it's 600 kilos heavier than the rear. So always check your travel heights. Now, things that you can do to improve travel heights is you can fit an adjustable tow hitch. Okay, now on most wagons, 7-seater vehicles, they are fitted with coil springs on the rear. Now what we find is that they are a little bit softer than your dual cab ute, so they sag when you hitch a caravan to the back. Now there is a solution for that. You can fit a set of airbags to the rear. But again, you just want to make sure that your car is within its legal limits, because if you do need to go and get a GVM upgrade, you're wasting your money on the airbags. Does that all make sense? Perfect. Now, distribute the weight evenly. So keep all of your heavy stuff down low, okay? And even when you're building your caravan, be mindful of where the accessories are going, and don't be afraid to ask the manufacturer if they can move something to the other side, because what we find is, especially on hybrid caravans these days, which are very popular, everything is on the passenger side. You've got your slide-out fridge, your slide-out kitchen, your batteries, your solar, your tables, your kitchen, everything's on that side. So that side of the van is significantly heavier. Once it's built, it's too late. You can't go and put 300-400 kilos on the opposite side because there's no room for it, okay? So look into where everything is and ask the questions. Can we move something on the other side because you're concerned about the amount of weight on the passenger side? Keep within, this is going to sound obvious, but keep within your legal limits and seek professional help for weights and sway correction. Do not ask the question on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. You'll get 100 different comments. Last night before bed, I made a mistake and I looked at my phone. Someone tagged me in something and I had to correct someone because they couldn't have been further from the truth, the advice that they were giving these people. Don't rely on Facebook for the answer. Call a professional, okay? Now, here are some real life examples. Now, here in in C, the scenario I was telling you about the car facing the front of the car facing the sky and the back of the caravan, or the front of the caravan dipping down. This is a perfect example of travel heights set up incorrectly, okay? You can see how it just doesn't look right when you're looking at it. It stands out. Right. Now, a question that we get all the time is that those big 200 series that you see cruising down the highway that have got the big van and the boat on the roof and the canopy and everything like that, are they legal? So the answer is some are, some aren't. Now, it's not uncommon these days to be traveling around with a boat. I'm sure most of you have seen these days, traveling families all have boats on the roof. Now, this car has been heavily modified to be able to take that that weight, okay? So, the interesting thing was though, this vehicle was fitted with a 100-litre water tank under the canopy. Now, with that water tank full, the car was actually non-compliant, okay? So, I guess where I'm going with this is, just because the accessory is there for you to purchase, to be available to put on the car, doesn't necessarily mean you can use it, okay? So, yes, it is possible to travel with a boat on the roof and a big van on a 200 series. However, you do still need to be selective with the amount of accessories you're putting on the car, because that car there is upwards of $200,000 to buy and build, okay? Now, B. I hear this all the time. When I tell someone they're overweight, the first thing they say to me is, I'm going to go buy a Ram. Okay? Now, again, Rams are a great car. Fantastic car. They've got plenty of room. They've got plenty of power. They're an amazing tow rig. However, just because it's a Ram and it's big, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be any better off with that than you would with the Ranger. Okay? If you're towing a 4.5-ton van, then you've got no choice. There's not much out there on the market other than a Ram that can tow that. However, you still need to be mindful of the rear axle load and the payload. These cars do not have a hell of a lot of payload. Most of the vans I see that are being towed by a 1500 Ram or a Silverado are a massive 4-ton plus Caravan. Now, what we're finding is that they can't put anything in the back of the car, especially if there's a family of 4 or 5. The Caravan tow ball weight's already at 400 kilos, plus passengers, plus fuel. Now, so anyone out there who thinks that you can just go buy a big American truck and, you can sort of set and forget, you don't have to worry about your weights, again, that couldn't be further from the truth. Do your research. Now, that's it from me. I'm just going to open it up to some questions. Don't be shy. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you are shy and you don't want to, just come over to our stand. Yes? Sorry? So that's only up to the engineers. The engineers have developed the kits, so it's not like you can go and ask for what you want. They're going to tell you. So let's say you got a 200 series, for example. Different companies offer different GVM upgrades. That question would probably be more directed to an engineer rather than myself. I can just tell you what the upgrades are and fit them for you. But in terms of the technical questions like that, you're best to speak to an engineer. Every vehicle has a chassis. Oh, you mean full length? Yeah. So again, I can find that out for you. If you want to come and speak to me, I can give my engineer a call, and then I can get the answer for you. But I'm not going to say something right now because I could be incorrect. I'm not sure about that. Sorry, I couldn't answer your question. Yep. Sorry. Yep. Yep. Okay. So that's a good question. So I'll give you a bit of an example so you can understand it a bit easier. So the GCM, for any of you who don't know what that is, that's the gross combination mass. That's the weight of the caravan and the weight of the car combined. Now, I'm going to use the Land Cruiser for an example, okay? So a Land Cruiser has a really good GCM rating because if you do the figures, if you add the GVM and then the weight of the caravan, you're covered in terms of GCM, right? Now, there's only one company, I think there's only one company, Lovells, which I'm sure you've probably heard of them, who offer the GVM GCM upgrade. Now, the reason you would need the GCM upgrade is if you are planning on heavily modifying your vehicle, for example, the Land Cruiser, the 200 series. Let's say you wanted to add a bull bar, winch, long-range tank, roof racks, the whole lot, family of 5. If you're going to push that car to, say, 4 ton, okay, and then you add the 3.5 ton caravan on the back, if you don't go for the GCM upgrade, then come weigh day, what you'll find is your GVM might be okay, but then the overall weight, the combined mass of the car and the caravan is going to be over. So that's why you need to go for the GCM upgrade. Does that answer your question? Sorry? So, cab chassis utes, Yes. A lot of the Everest, the MUX, the Pajero, when you look at Y62, a Y62's got a 7,000 GCM and the GVM's 3.5. So 3.5 the car can weigh, 3.5 the van can weigh, you're covered, right? The MUX, yeah, so the MUX, unfortunately, they come under that banner of the Everest, the MUX, all those small SUV style that are on the borderline of in my opinion, I wouldn't tow a 3.5 ton van with one of those, right? Because you'd be pushing the car to its absolute limit. Yep. With the Prados, I've got one. My wife drives a Prado. Oh, sorry. So, what was your name, sorry? Gina. Gina asked a Prado. So a Prado, a late model Prado's got a brake towing capacity of 3 ton. And she's asking what would be a good size caravan to be towed by the Prado. Now, you will be able to tow a 3 ton caravan, but that's again going to be depending on how many passengers, right? So if it's just yourself and your partner, then a 3 ton van definitely is doable. What you need to remember with the Prado is also that the tow ball download can only be 300 kilos, okay? So to make it work, I would say that the Prado would have to have little to no accessories on it to be able to tow that 3 ton van. Now, if you are wanting to have a bull bar, a winch, again, it can be possible, but you just need to go down in weight with the van. Does that make sense? Yeah, perfect. Anyone else? Well, if you do have any questions and you don't want to mention it now, or you're whatever, if you later on, or even if you're buying a new caravan today, I'll get to you. Even if you're buying a new caravan today and you want to run some numbers by us, come over and see us. We're happy to give you advice. The last thing we want to do is see you buy something and then find out later that you can't actually tow it. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, correct. Individual wheel weights, corner weights, axle loads, the whole lot. The whole lot. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming today, and enjoy the rest of the show.